everybody, it's Anne Margaret with Raise the Vibration, and I'm so excited because I've got one of my favorite long-term, I've known her entire life, people in the world. So I've got Isabelle Stuever here. She is not only the youngest person in the book, but I have known her her entire life. She is the daughter, she's the oldest of three, and she is the daughter of my best friend in the world, Mary Stuever. Mary Frances, Battle is her maiden name. But we've known each other, Mary and I have known each other our entire lives. I only haven't known your mom for the first 2 months of her life because she was born 2 months before me. But we really grew up like sisters, and so I was so excited. Isabelle, let me just brag about you a little bit, and then I want you to tell us a little bit about you. So Isabelle is coming from Ohio, from Cincinnati, Ohio, and she just graduated. She's one of the smartest people I know. The way that you devote yourself to your academics and to all aspects of who you are is just so inspiring at such a young age. And so Isabelle, I first reeled into the writing world, in my world, with our New Moon Women membership website. And she used to write the teen scene little chapter every month for that. And I was like, wow, she's a pretty good writer. We got to get her involved with something else. So when I was putting together this book of stories, I reached out to you and you said yes. And I was so psyched because it's really important. Like, even though you haven't had this, depth of experience as an adult, so many times we as adults forget the depth of experience that we had when we were kids. And we need to be reminded about our youth and the wisdom and the dimension of what we could access at that time. So tell us a little bit about you. Tell us where you're headed in the fall and all that good stuff.
All right. I'm 18. When I wrote the story, I was 16. So it's been a couple of years since then.
Yeah.
Like Anne Margaret said, I just graduated. And in the fall, I'll actually be moving to Ireland to study at Trinity College in Dublin. And I'll be studying history and also history of art and architecture. So I'm getting a joint honors degree.
Amazing.
And right now I'm actually in the process of moving to Germany with my family. So this is not my home. This is an Airbnb we're at right now.
Oh my gosh, you guys are already at the Airbnb.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So Isabelle's parents are both in the military. Mary, as I said, is her mama, is a special surgeon. So she just got transferred to where in Germany?
We'll be at Ramstein Air Force Base. It's about 40 miles from the France border and near Frankfurt.
So exciting. And you got two little rugrats underneath of you, too. So Can you tell me about them? I know Brenda's going to kill me for saying rugrat, but there you go. He's not a rugrat.
I have the two little brothers. I have Brendan, who's 16, and then Calvin, who's 9. They're also moving with my parents to Germany, so they'll be going to school over there.
And Brendan is a hockey player. He's ginormous. He's huge.
Yeah,
and such an amazing kid, like such a really great kid. And he's getting to be so old now. How old is he? You said 16?
16.
No.
And
The
age I was when I wrote the story.
Oh my God, that's so crazy. It's amazing how quickly time flies, right? And how you feel like such a different person, especially at a young age. Like 2 years is like, what, was like an eighth of your life at that point?
Yeah.
So it's a really big deal. And then we've got Calvin, who's just like the mascot, the most precious angel. Oh my gosh. He was born the same day one of my other dear friends' child was born in Brooklyn. So like, I came down, I know, I don't know if I ever told you that, but
I think so.
Yeah, my friend Mona in New York had her little boy at the same day. So I went to the hospital to visit them and said hello, and then I flew down to visit you guys, and
oh my goodness.
That was so special to meet Calvin too. And Calvin is just, what a little stud. He has taken cooking classes when I was there, which is pretty amazing. Has he started eating any of his cooking, or is he a typical chef?
He has not started eating any of his cooking, but he did win a cooking competition. So
of course he did. And how old is he again?
He's 9.
That kid.
Yeah.
He's magic. He's pure magic, right?
For sure. He's so cool.
Well, tell us a little bit more about yourself with why you chose the levels, what you're studying. I know a lot of people change their major. I didn't. I kept with the same one, of what I wanted to do. But a lot of people change. And so why did you get drawn to this? And what are some other interests about that really kind of nudge you into what your interests are?
I've always been super interested in history. Like, it was my favorite thing growing up. In fourth grade, I participated in the geography bee, and I was like the representative from my class. So it's always been like my favorite thing to study. And then looking forward to a career, I really love being in museums, and I really want to work in museums as a museum curator and like an exhibit designer. So I'm looking to
I can totally see you do
get into that. Yeah,
that's amazing.
I want to do classes and an internship in art restoration too, because I feel like that would help a lot with being in museums.
Absolutely. I always thought that was so fascinating. When I studied abroad, oh my gosh, that was a long time ago. In like 97, I was so fascinated when I go to all the museums all over Europe and just watch the meticulousness of the redesign. Sometimes they were just out there restoring the paintings in front of you, which I thought was so cool. So, I mean, I'm sure you learned so much about trying to get into the artist's shoes at that point and really, do the best you can to recreate their style, which is an art form in itself.
Yeah, I'm really excited. There's some programs I'm looking at in Italy and Greece for art restoration.
Well, I can't wait to come visit you everywhere, starting in Ireland, maybe hop into Germany, because you're going to have so much fun. Okay, so let's get to your story now. We got the book finally. Yay! The book is launched. I'm so excited. And you're hosting the chapter of just a light topic, failure. Failure. And that's something that's really a sexy topic that everyone wants to talk about, right? Everyone is like,
amazing.
Let's talk about failure. I mean, what I thought is so extraordinary is you at 16 years old, I mean, I've always known you're wise beyond your years, obviously, that you chose the topic, a gift in failure. That's the name of your story. Now, how extraordinary. I mean, there are so many amazing kids out there right now, so I'm not going to say that they're not. But I got to say, and I'm a little partial because, you're my pseudo-niece. So, and is that, to connect with that, and you embody alchemy in this story. And alchemy is extracting that gold, right? It's pulling the greatness out of the seemingly insignificant or discardable. And you did that in your story so beautifully. Tell us a little bit about this story, because, I mean, at 16... some people are like, oh, what did she go through at this point? I mean, if any of us recognize, how challenging it is, you couldn't pay me enough to go back to junior high, quite frankly. That's right? That is such an intense time. So, every single step along the way, if we divorce ourselves from what we've gone through and the adversity we've faced, even as a young person, we were like, oh, that was stupid and little. It wasn't at the time. It wasn't at the time, right?
It was the biggest thing that had ever happened to me at the time. I was like, my life is over. Everything's horrible.
Yeah, exactly. And you get perspective about what you've been through, as time goes by. But as we're going through it, we never really lose that, oh my God, my world is crumbling down, to a degree when the big stuff happens. It feels like that, and our feeling body our logical brain says, oh no, we're gonna be okay. We made it through this, and this. But in the moment, we don't feel that way. That's why I initially reached out to all of you, because in March of 2020, when the lockdown started, everybody was thinking, this is the end of the world. This is, what are we gonna do? And I just thought to myself, I kind of step back into that sort of meditative mind where you can kind of process a little bit of what's going on rather than being immersed in it. And I thought, well, if we can just remember what we've already been through and focus on that, then we can really harness the strength to go through it and go through it without all this fear that breaks down our immune system and everything else. And it stresses us and creates havoc in our relationships. So what I want to ask you is, because this was a very significant moment for you in your life, is why this story compared to some other ones that I've known you your whole life, so I know you've been through a lot, at this point in your life, and that's what gives you such dimension and depth. So why this story?
So you reached out for the story writing, I think in February and March timeframe. And
yes, March, exactly.
This happened just right prior, the last week of January, and I had been so excited. I'd been doing all the practice stuff I needed to do. And like, I was fully prepared. And you can read about that in the story. Like everything I was doing, I was getting all my hours in. I was so ready. And then the day of the thing came and like the conditions weren't good. Road conditions were bad. And so I was...
It was a fog? There was like a huge fog.
It was pouring rain. It was foggy. And then, so I had 3 options for the car I could do it in. I had my mom's big Honda Pilot SUV, my dad's bigger truck, or I could do it in the stick shift. And the thing with, if you do it in a manual car, which is the car I now drive, if you stall the car at all, you immediately fail. I was still having issues with getting my car going because I had just started doing it recently when it's time for me to take the test. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to take it in the manual because I'm going to immediately fail because I'm going to be so stressed. My dad's truck, it was just impractical to do. So I was like, okay, I decided to take it in my mom's huge Honda Pilot. Like, this thing is massive. And so the day of the test comes around, and I am starting to do, so in the state of Ohio, there's 2 separate parts for the driver's test. The first part is a maneuverability where you move through cones. And the second part is like the road test where you're driving on the road, and it's like the pretty standard one. So we go to do the maneuverability, and I'm so stressed. I'm shaking. The examiner gets my car. I'm shaking. He's like, okay, we can leave now. Like, we can go whenever. And I'm like, okay. And so I pull off and I start doing it. And I get through the first part, and I'm going through the second part. You have to go through, and then you have to reverse back all the way out. So I'm going through the first part.
That sounds so stressful.
It is. And on my way back out, boom, I knock over a cone, immediate fail. So I'm like, no.
Oh my gosh.
I can pick it up in the second part. It'll be okay in the second part. We pull around. I'm already sobbing. The guy gets out of the car for a second, and he's like, I'll give you a second to process and a second to just get your bearings.
Gosh. Oh my gosh.
And when he gets back in the car, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to finish this. All I have to do next weekend is maneuverability because I've already failed the first part, so I'm not getting my license today, but I can make it easier for me next weekend. I get to the road test, and in my city, there's 2 spots that are like the most popular ones to go to. The first one's about 30 minutes from where I live, and it's considered the easiest, and everybody passes there, so I was going to go there, and that's where I'm taking the test at. And you drive through a neighborhood, but all of the cars in the neighborhood were parked on the right side. So it was impossible to hold my side on the right side. So we pulled back to the DMV, and he said, because you were unable to hold your right side of the road, you have an immediate failure. I was like, so failed both parts. Absolutely devastated. Absolutely, just sobbing. I sat in the car for 15 minutes, didn't go inside. My examiner went inside. And then I had to go in and tell my dad, I'm not getting my license today. Man. We got to go home. So we woke up.
It's so crazy with this too. It's like you have such extraordinary parents. I mean, I know Dave very well as well. Great. You know your dad, and I love just how you even talk about the connection you have with your dad and how awesome it is. And with this kind of situation, like there are things we can control and there are things we can't control, right? Yeah. And anybody who knows you as a student knows like you're the most diligent student. Like I have no doubt that you were beyond prepared, honestly, for that. So it's like, it's so crazy with this is that you were so prepared, and yet there are things we can't control. And especially in our teenage years, it's so, so important to recognize that, as we're developing and going into our adult life, like we've got to recognize that if we can't control a situation, we need to acknowledge it and then just do the best that we can do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I connected the chakras with, I don't know if have you seen your chapter yet?
No,
you got your book, right?
We have the book. Yeah. I haven't seen it though yet. Because of moving and shuffling around, I haven't been able to look at it yet. But
I'm sending it to you during your move. That's awesome. Well, I tell you, here is your chapter. I'll just show you so everybody can see. This is, can you see that?
Yeah.
The gift and failure. And the theme is failure. Okay, that's the theme. And I also connected a chakra, which is like our energy points in our bodies, right? Mm-hmm. So the chakra I connected with yours is the 5th chakra. And the 5th chakra is all about this taking responsibility and also kind of maneuverability between what you can and can't control, and the co-creative process of life. And I mean, you wrote about this at 16 years old. You've learned so much even since then. You're like a whole new person at 18. But even knowing this, and for the adults who are watching, who are certainly not that young, the idea of moving through life and we get handed things that are not what we want. The story has a very happy ending. You drove us, so
I have my driver's license.
I know you have your driver's license. Spoiler alert.
It eventually worked out.
And she's an excellent driver. I can attest myself. But yeah, like things work out, and they don't always work out the way that you want them to, but they work out in a way that really, I believe, like on a soul level, the things that we think that we want aren't always what we want. Sometimes we want these stories of going through this and having the gift. What's the gift in this failure for you? If you're, you wrote this story in your life because it just happened, and there's such a takeaway, with what you can and can't control. But what do you want for the people who are watching this and also reading the book? And you can get the book at Raise the Vibration. We put the link and everything, raisevibration.com on the shop page. But people who are reading your story, like what do you want them to take away? What's the gift?
I think the gift from it is really learning from your failure and learning that just because you did fail at something doesn't mean you can't come back from it and it's not going to get better. When I originally failed, I was like, this is the end of my life. I'm never going to drive.
Right.
I'm going to always fail. And then I went back a week later and I ended up getting my license after practicing. But that first day and the first couple of hours where I was just crying and I was devastated and I really had to work through all of those emotions. And now looking back, it seems inconsequential that I failed my test because I was just able to go back and take it. And eventually I'm going to have bigger and more massive failures in my life that I'm going to have to work through. But that initial failure was the first thing I ever did that I was like, this is horrible and awful and terrible. So getting through those emotions will help me and help others later in life to cope with when they fail at something.
Failure is guaranteed. Victimization is guaranteed. We're going to be victimized by something, whether it's the traffic or something worse or just a really difficult time in our life. So the more we can either, with something that's victimizing us in the moment or something that is victimizing us of our own mishap or misstep. Yeah. How do we deal with that? And it's a muscle that you, even at now 18 years old, are flexing in a way that's so critical. And we need to support one another in that when we do fail, at least we tried. And, there's some people who say there's no such thing as failure until you give up. You don't fail until you give up. Yeah. And a week later, you succeeded. And
a week later, I got it.
A week later, you got and the rest is history. Yes. So I want to also just show you, since you haven't seen the book, that there are little fun workbooky aspects.
Oh,
do you see?
Yeah.
So fun. So you can write down your top 3 priorities, do a little check-in, which is fun here with the rose, and then you document your daily miracles too. Can you see that? Yeah. So there's a lot of fun things in the book. There's a great quote too that you chose that I'm going to share, which is Winston Churchill. Awesome reference here. So great from history, of course, your history book. It says, success is not final. Final is not fatal, or failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. So I'm going to read that again. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. And I love that you chose that quote because it's, talking about success too. When we meet our successes, we can't just rest on our laurels, and it doesn't mean that we can't enjoy them. We need to own them, right? So tell me what you think about this quote and why you chose it.
I think it's really important to recognize that you're going to succeed sometimes, but you're also going to fail. And you can't have those high highs of succeeding without also having those lows of failing to understand the metric difference between the two. And you're always going to have to be adapting to the successes and seeing how can you grow from that success, or adapting to the failure and seeing how you can come back from that failure.
As we get into our adult lives, also we take on more responsibilities, more accountabilities, and it's such that we feel kind of like the tide is rising, and we get to this place where we just feel like, oh gosh, especially in the last couple of years, when we've had such a spike in depression and suicide amongst younger people too, and adults alike, I mean, it is something that we need to remember, that we are going to face really difficult things. And if we can have people around us to support us, if we've got the family, that's great. If not, it's our duty to create that chosen family to support us, our friends and our colleagues, our mentors, our teachers, to really support us through those tough times. That's so, so critical. So I want to ask you, just to close, you're such a beautiful writer. So what did you get out of the storytelling, like writing the story?
It was really therapeutic to write the story down and kind of just process everything like a month or so later, and to see that like even in that month time frame, it had become a smaller thing and there were bigger things that came along. And getting my license, while it's a very important thing, and like I was able to do it still, even though I had that initial failure. And it did have a happy ending, even though the whole thing is about failing. It still had a good ending.
Therapeutic is the answer I get from most of my authors. We have 52 authors in this book, and one for each week of the year. It just ended up like that. That's why I turned it into a weekly guide. But that's the thing that all the other authors are saying too, is it's just therapeutic. And this is really important for the younger people who are also watching, as well as the adults, seasoned adults, I'll say, is that it's so critical to own our story. I mean, it's so, so critical. Whatever we're going through, whatever we're moving through, if we're able to stop and say, hey, this is part of my story, rather than try and hide it or shame it or run from it or pretend it's not happened, the more we own it, and that's a timing thing, when we own that story, and as time moves on, if we courageously embrace that, then there's a time for it too. It doesn't need to be like right away. Like it's a process, of course, right? But in doing that, it's so empowering, because then you're standing by yourself, really standing with yourself, and whether other people are standing there or not, you find out who your friends are and who your friends aren't. And I think that's such a powerful thing as you're going into college now, and everything you're going to be exposed to, even in a different country, and how exciting with this incredible school. What do you have to say about that?
I'm really excited for what's coming up in the future. I move into my dorm room, my apartment, September 10th. And so it feels like a whole new chapter is opening as I'm moving and getting ready for this. And September 10th is the start of the next big thing for me. So I'm so excited.
You have so many good things ahead of you, Isabelle. I'm so excited for you. Anthony and I, we are just cheering you on so loudly. We're so excited for you and everything that's coming your way, and can't wait to visit you. So we'll have to figure out something. By that time, you'll know the lay of the land and know where to go, and take us on the literary journeys of where Keats and Shelley wrote their stories and their poetry. So we'll really look forward to coming and visiting you. But thanks so much for joining me this morning on the live, and just for sharing. Yeah, I mean, it's just so great to be with you, of course, at any time, my dear little niece. I'll always say my little niece, because that's how you always be for me. It's just that's just the way we are, right? But I absolutely adore you and so proud of you. And thanks again for being a part of this book, too. And if they want to follow you, on Instagram, or find out how to get a hold of you or watch your journey in Ireland, how do they find you?
My Instagram username is Iced Isa, all one word, ICED. CHAIISA.
Love it. I'm a fan of iced chai as well. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me, honey. And all you, thank you so much for watching, either live or replay. And until next time, keep raising the vibration, everybody.